Today we're going to be crocheting this surprisingly simple beanie using a chevron stitch brim and double crochet stitches to create the body. And for our beanie, I am going to be working with the Buttercream Roving wool yarn, and this is a size 5 bulky yarn. And you will need roughly 230 yards or 2 skeins of this. And check the links in the description for this matching crochet headband, and you can use your leftover yarn to complete this project. I'm also going to be using a size K or 10.5 or 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. And we're going to begin by attaching the yarn to our crochet hook using a slip knot, and then we're going to chain 7. Once you have your 7 chains, go ahead and turn them over so that you can access this back bump. What we're going to do is place 1 single crochet in each of our back bumps going down our row, and that does include that very first chain. So we should have a total of 7 single crochets when we get to the end of the row. And at the end of the row, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. From here, we're going to skip our turning chain, and we're going to place 1 single crochet in each of our previous row's single crochet stitches. So we should have 7 single crochets when we're done. And at the end of your row, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work again. And we're going to skip our turning chain and place 1 single crochet in our first stitch. Then working down here in this very first row, you can see that we have the traditional V portion of our stitch. So what we want to do is place 1 triple crochet in our 4th or middle stitch right here. And we're just going to work in this back loop. So to do that, you're going to yarn over twice and then find your 4th loop. And you're just going to insert your crochet hook in that back loop, yarn over and pull up through the loop, and then yarn over and drop 2 loops at a time until you complete the stitch. From here, working back up in the top portion of our row, we're going to skip 1 stitch. Then we're going to place 1 single crochet in the following stitch. Then we're going to place 1 single crochet in the back loop only of our next stitch, and then 1 single crochet under the full stitch of our next stitch. So 3 total single crochets, with that center one being in the back loop only. From here, we're going to place 1 triple crochet back in that same loop where we placed our first triple crochet. And now we're going to place 1 single crochet in our very last stitch of this row. From here, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each of our 7 stitches going down our row. And at the end of the row, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And the pattern for this row is going to be basically the same as this first row. We're going to begin by placing a single crochet in our first stitch. Then we're going to place a triple crochet in the front loop only from that stitch where we worked in the back loop. So right here. And we're going to place our triple crochet. Then making sure we're working in the top portion of our row, we're going to skip our next stitch and then place a single crochet under the full stitch, 1 in the back loop only, and then 1 in the full stitch. Then we're going to place a triple crochet back in that same front loop where we placed our first triple crochet of this row. And to finish this row, we're just going to place a single crochet in that last stitch. From here, we're just going to repeat those last 2 rows over and over to build the body of our brim. And once you have 32 of your V's like this, then you're going to want to make sure that you have crocheted your return pass. And from here, we are going to fold our pretty side in and have our ugly side facing out. And you want to make sure that your tail is on the opposite side of your crochet hook. From here, we are going to slip stitch these opposite edges together by working in these corresponding stitches. So we're going to work up underneath this last chain from our first row, and then up underneath our last stitch like this. And this works best if you've placed a chain at the end of your last row. From here, we're going to yarn over and drop all the loops on our crochet hook for a slip stitch. And now we're just going to repeat this process in each of our stitches going up. And once you've joined your edge, then I want you to chain 1 and then turn your brim right side out. And we are going to be crocheting over our starting tail, so just line it up with the top edge of your brim here. And you see how you sort of have this knot and then these 2 loops, this knot and then 2 loops? Well, we want to work in these sections of these 2 loops going around our brim. And all we're going to do is place 2 double crochets in each of our sections of 2 loops. And at the end of the row, you should have a total of 66 double crochets. And when you get to the end of your row, what you're going to do is place 1 slip stitch right here in the top of your first double crochet. And we're going to place 1 slip stitch in our following stitch, and we're going to place 2 double crochets in each of these gaps between our sets of double crochets. So we're just going to dive right in between the posts that form the double crochet stitches. So we're just going to repeat that going all the way around our row, and when we get done, we should have a total of 66 double crochets. And when you get to the end of your row, you're going to place your next 2 double crochets right here in this gap between your slip stitch and your 2 double crochets. So right here. And this will allow your pattern to be seamless, so the rows will act like a spiral and you won't have to worry about starting and stopping each individual row. So from here, the pattern's going to be to place 2 double crochets in each of these gaps in each of these rows for multiple rows while we build the body of our beanie. And whenever you start to run out of yarn, all you're going to do is just start by yarning over with your next new skein. So when you yarn over with it, you're just going to hold your tail in place while you finish out your stitch. Like that. And then you're going to pull both of these tails nice and tight, and you can tie them together and then crochet over them in the next row. And I went ahead and crocheted 8 total rows of placing my 2 double crochets in these gaps. And for this next part, I do recommend grabbing a scrap piece of yarn or a stitch marker to mark the first stitch in each row. From here, we're going to place decreasing rows to close the gap in our beanie. So the pattern for this first row is to place our first 4 double crochets like normal, and I usually place my first 2 stitches and then mark the first stitch. And that way you know where your row begins. And once you've placed your first 4 double crochets, then we are going to double crochet together 2 stitches. So to do that, yarn over and insert your crochet hook in your next gap, and yarn over and pull up through, then yarn over and drop 2 loops. So you should have 2 loops on your crochet hook, and we're going to yarn over again and reinsert our crochet hook back in that gap, yarning over and pulling back up through. We're going to yarn over and drop those first 2 loops again. From here, you should have 3 loops on your crochet hook, so we're just going to yarn over and drop all 3 loops. So that's going to be your pattern going all the way around your row, placing 1 double crochet in your first 4 stitches and then double crocheting together your 5th and your 6th stitch. And when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 55 double crochets. And we're still going to be placing 2 stitches in each of our gaps. So the pattern for this next row is to place 1 double crochet in our first stitch, and then we're going to double crochet together our 2nd and our 3rd. And so every other decrease will be between 2 gaps, and then the others will just be like normal. From here, we're just going to repeat that pattern going all the way around our row. And when we're done, we should have a total of 44 double crochets. And the pattern for our next row is to double crochet 2 stitches together in each gap going all the way around our row. And when we get done, we should have a total of 33 double crochets. So for this row, we're going to begin to decrease our gaps. So yarn over and insert your crochet hook in your next gap, and yarn over and pull up through. Then yarn over and drop your 2 loops. Yarn over and insert your crochet hook in your next gap, and yarn over and pull up through, then yarn over and drop your 2 loops. Then we're going to yarn over and drop those last 3 loops. So you can see here that we have now joined 2 gaps. So we want to do that going all the way around our row. And when you get to the end of your row, you should have 16 stitches. And for our next row, we're just going to repeat that last row, working in the gaps between our stitches like this. So we know that each of these is only 1 stitch, but it does sort of look like 2 when you work between them. So still not working in the top portion of our stitch, but just working in the gaps between our posts. So we should cut our gaps in half again. And when you get to the end of your row, the gap at the top of your beanie should be nice and small. So from here, we are going to cut and tie off our yarn, but we want to leave a tail of about 6 inches. And I want you to take your tail and weave it in between the gaps in your last row. So just between your stitches like this. And once you're done weaving your tail, then pull on it to cinch up the top of your beanie like this, so there's no gap. And then I just like to find a loop that I can tie my tail off with. And I'm going to draw my tail to the inside of my beanie, and you can either hide it there or use it to attach a nice pom-pom. And I will link to my traditional pom-pom and my faux fur pom-pom tutorials in the description for you. Please let me know in the comments below if you experienced any issues while you were crocheting this, and I will do my best to help you out. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, Crochet with Julie. Thank you so much for working with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, awesome day.